If they get a 4.5, they'll get a pay rise. Universities here in UK ask a range of different scores depending on the program. Generally, they're asking for a 7. So what's important is that we set a clear goal which we want to achieve. Without a vision, without a goal, we cannot achieve success in IELTS. The next step would be to get a strategy. Now, a strategy is going to be very different for everybody, depending on the level of English that you might already have and the goal that you have. So I have a friend. She wants to take the IELTS to study. She needs a very low score. She needs a 5.5 or a 6. Her level at the moment is an IELTS, something approximately around an 8. So she's a very fluent speaker, lives in the UK, and needs an IELTS 5.5 or an IELTS 6. So obviously the road to success is going to be very short. She can take a 1-week, 2-week course and she'll be set for the IELTS test, or she'll be set for success in achieving her goal. However, obviously, if you've got a very low level of of English, and you want to get a very high IELTS score, that road to IELTS is going to be a lot longer. So if you're an elementary student who doesn't quite understand a lot of English, maybe an IELTS 3.5 or an IELTS 4, and you're thinking, I want to get an IELTS 7, a 1-week or a 2-week course obviously isn't going to be enough. You're going to have to spend a lot of time in what we call the step of action. And action, it's all about practice. In order to become good at IELTS, what you need to do is you need to practice. So just as if you wanted to become a good football player, one of the things that you would need to do is have a good coach. However, just having a good coach and just attending some seminars on how to play football wouldn't be enough. You would need to do a lot of practice. And so there we have it. If we want to achieve success in IELTS, we do need to have a lot of practice. Unfortunately, on this course, as it is a webinar, I'll be doing the talking, and obviously you won't be getting the practice. This will give you some strategies. This will give you some tips and some tricks on how you can better prepare yourself for the IELTS. But ultimately, how you perform and your success boils down to one thing, and that is how much you practice. And in saying that, one of the things that is really helpful is controlled practice. So we could practice doing something, but we could be practicing doing it wrong, and that would not be helpful at all. So it is important to have a good coach and to make sure that in practicing the IELTS skills, that somebody is able to give you some feedback on how you are doing. Just to give you an idea of where your level could be. So in English, we have people who are beginner, we have people who are advanced. And basically, how does that translate into an IELTS score? So if you're a pre-intermediate student, you would be looking at getting an IELTS score of about 3.5 or a 4. If you're an intermediate student, that would be a 4.5 or a 5. An upper intermediate student could expect to get an IELTS score of about 5.5. And then obviously advanced learners would be getting a 6+. And it really depends on just how advanced you are. Obviously that scale is just indicative. It doesn't mean that if you finished upper intermediate, you will get a 5.5. And that is an indication of what you could possibly achieve. Let's have a look at IELTS. A little bit about what it is and what it isn't. There is a lot of information about IELTS on the internet. There's a lot of information about IELTS. There's a lot of books, a lot of resources. Unfortunately, a lot of that information is inaccurate, and a lot of teachers who teach IELTS, unfortunately, haven't taken IELTS themselves, or don't really know what IELTS is about, and might not have even achieved a very good score. Therefore, unfortunately, many things that you might have heard about IELTS might actually not be true. Because it's a big test and many people talk about it, it's obviously prone to these type of rumors. So let's just quickly have a look at a few things about IELTS, what it is and what it isn't. So many people will say that IELTS is difficult. IELTS is in fact not difficult if your level of English is good and your goal is very low. So going back to my friend who has approximately an IELTS 8, a very advanced speaker of English, very proficient, and she has a goal of 5.5 or a 6, IELTS for her is going to be very, very easy. Once you understand the structure of the test and once you understand what's required of you in the test, then it's just a matter of transferring your skills, your language skills, towards a score. So just like visiting a doctor isn't difficult, likewise IELTS isn't difficult. A doctor will examine you, will tell you what's wrong with you, will tell you your blood sugar levels, they'll do a few tests, and they'll tell you whether you're healthy or not healthy. Nobody would say that visiting a doctor is difficult. And in the same way, IELTS, it seeks to identify your language proficiency, whether you're able to respond to certain situations, in certain situations using the English language or not. So IELTS isn't difficult. It is, however, very important to study, to prepare yourself for IELTS, to know what is expected from you. Another rumor which people often say is that IELTS is harder than other English tests. There are other English tests out there which are easier. That's also not true. IELTS is just seeking to gauge your proficiency. So whether you are or you are not a good English speaker, or at what level can you speak English? If another English test seems easier, because because it's shorter, because less is required. All it could in fact mean is that it's not giving you such a intricate look into your level of or your 4 skills. So every English test, every good English test out there seeks to determine your level. IELTS has been chosen by many institutions as credible, and a lot of tests which might seem shorter and easier are therefore deemed not credible by many institutions because they don't give you such an in-depth look at your level, and that's what makes IELTS seem hard. However, it is wrong to say it is a hard test. Can you cheat in IELTS? That's a question I was often asked. How can I buy the IELTS? Very popular question in Central Asia. Of course, one of the reasons, in actual fact, it was possible in the past to buy IELTS. People were selling IELTS certificates. Some institutions which were asking for certificates were unable to check whether the certificate was authentic or not, and they were accepting false certificates. I think a lot of those institutions have woken up to themselves nowadays, and it is possible to check an IELTS certificate's authenticity. Can you cheat in IELTS? Probably not. One of the reasons why IELTS is so renowned and accepted by many institutions is because of its security. However, that doesn't stop people from trying. When you take the IELTS, do you need to speak with a British, an Australian, or an American accent to score well? It's not true. We all have many different accents. In Britain, there are many accents. As you travel around, even such a small place, you will see that many people here have a wide variant of accents, and so there's not really a thing, there's no such thing as a British accent. And the same would be true of an American accent as well. Australia is a much younger country, and so all of us from Australia tend to sound quite similar. I'm sure you have IDP in Kazakhstan. IDP in Kazakhstan runs under Interpress. So if you take IELTS with Interpress, you're actually taking it with IDP. IDP is the equivalent of the British Council, except IDP belongs to Australia and the British Council belongs to Britain. The test is run exactly the same. One's not easier than the other. They run exactly the same test, and often examiners from IDP will work at the British Council, and the British Council examiners will work with IDP. So they don't have different examiners, and there's definitely no leniency either way. So IELTS is an examination of your English capability. That's true, and that's what IELTS is about. It's basically testing how well can you speak English. And I already mentioned this, IELTS is secure, and that's what makes it popular amongst universities. Universities and university lecturers don't want you to come to England without being able to speak English. You'll not be able to pass the course. You'll waste your money and you'll waste their time. So IELTS examiners, IELTS is secure. It makes sure that the person taking the test is a person who they claim to be, and it helps universities to make sure that the people that do come are able to speak the language at the level that they claim to be able to speak. So let's move along. Let's have a look at just what the IELTS test constitutes. And it is a 2 hour and 45-minute test. There are 4 parts. We have reading, writing, listening, and speaking. I've just seen a question come in whether today we will just be discussing general information about IELTS. We will not. We will have a look at listening today. This session today and the session tomorrow, we'll be looking at listening. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some skills and some tips in being able to tackle the listening section of the test. I also want to give you some practice with some tasks. So that's the part we'll be looking at today. Just to let you know, I forgot to mention that we will have a quiz at the end of this session, and there will be a prize. I think we have a cash prize at the end of our session today, or nearing the end of our session today. We'll stop and we'll do a short quiz, and the winner will take a prize. So do hang around. You might have a chance to win back 5,000 tenge, I believe. So the speaking part of the test is basically one of the parts of the test which is conducted by an examiner. So it basically lasts, we've got 15 minutes there. The test lasts from 11 to 14 minutes. And it's 3 parts. We will discuss in detail a bit later on in one of the sessions exactly what's involved. The reading section, there will be another examiner who will be covering that, and that will be covered on Friday and Saturday. And then the writing section, also 60 minutes, 2 tasks, and we'll be looking at both tasks, the task 1 and the task 2, and hopefully be able to give you some vocabulary, some grammar, and some good tips on how to tackle these 2 tasks and achieve success in IELTS. As I mentioned before, today we'll be having a look at the listening test. The listening test constitutes, just quickly, of 40 different questions. One of the things that is very different about the listening and the reading test is at the end of the listening test, you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers onto a sheet of paper, whereas in the reading, you don't have that 10 minutes. So that is definitely one thing to note. I remember in one test session, one chap in the reading got a 0, and I asked him, how did you manage to get a 0? Because the nature of the test being multiple choice questions, you've got true, false, not given. It's almost statistically impossible to get a 0. We call it a monkey score, that even a monkey could get more than a 0 for the reading and the listening section. And he said, well, at the end of the test, I realized that there's an answer sheet and I don't have any time to put anything on it. So that's one of the reasons why it is important to prepare for the IELTS. So he'd written all the questions, but he'd written them on the wrong sheet of paper. He hadn't transferred his answers to the answer sheet. and accordingly handed in a blank answer sheet. In the listening, you will have 10 minutes to write down your answers. 4 sections, they're quite different, so we'll have a look at that. So the instructions for the listening will be on the recording. Everything will be spelled out for you quite clearly. There's 4 sections, and they progressively get harder. So the whole idea of the listening test is to give you an opportunity just to tune in basically to what the speaker, basically to the level of speech. It starts with a conversation with 2 speakers, which is quite easy to follow. And basically something social or survival, for example, booking a hotel, and then it moves on into a talk by one speaker, a general talk, and obviously that's still easy because it is general. Then section 3 becomes harder again as we get 2 to 4 speakers, and the topic changes to educational, which is obviously more difficult than social. And then section 4 is probably the hardest part because it is something like what is happening now, talk by a lecturer or by a speaker, and it is course related. The problem is that it might not be something that you're quite familiar with. And so basically the whole idea of the test is to ease you in by starting slowly, and then at the end is where the questions start to get a little bit more tough. So let's have a look. Before we have a look at some of the actual question types, my plan for today is to take you through some of the different question types in the IELTS listening section. So before we do that, let's first of all have a look at some of the frequently asked questions about IELTS. And one of the questions which people often ask is, will there be different accents? Depending on where you learn English or what aspects of English interest you, will depend on what accent you prefer. So if you're into movies, if you're a bit of a movie buff, maybe the American accents will be easier for you to understand. If you plan to study in the UK, it might be the UK accent that you enjoy. I'm not sure if anybody really enjoys the Australian accent, but that's okay. The thing is that you will hear a wide variety of accents, and they're always clear. How easy they are to understand is debatable. However, sometimes you might hear accents which are not native speaker accents. However, there won't be any grammatical mistakes. So one of the things is about English, it's not about learning it with one accent. For IELTS, you need to be ready to hear a range of different accents. And that's true for speaking as well. I think, you could get an examiner from America, you could get an examiner from the north of England, you could get a Welsh examiner, a Scottish examiner, Australian examiner, and some of those accents are really, really varied. So it's up to you to be able to then make sure that you're able to understand a wide variety of accents. What about the questions? So there are a mix of questions. One of the things to watch out for, and we'll be focusing a lot on that today, is how many words you're able to write. And so often the question types will ask you about putting down a letter, a number, true, false, not given, or writing up to 3 words. Now we're going to have a look at a range of question types today. Will you get every type in your test? You won't. So each test contains approximately a range of. Every test will contain a range of different questions. They vary quite significantly, and so it really depends on the test. However, it is good to get prepared for every type of question. Now, there are a lot of different listening situations and question types. So basically, what IELTS is trying to test is trying to test your ability to be able to listen in a variety of different situations. So obviously, it's listening to 2 people talk is going to be very different than sitting in a lecture. And so that's basically why there is a range of different question types and listening situations. This also helps to sift between a low-level listener or a low-level English learner and a higher-level English learner by putting in a wide range of scenarios. Now, you will have reading time in the test, and one of the things is just sit there and look at across the room of reading time. And this is one of the skills in IELTS, is making the best use of your time. So when you have the reading time in the IELTS listening, it is very important that you use that time to highlight, to underline words, and to try and guess the context of where and how the question will be asked. So the general approach to the listening test is that once the recording begins, what you want to do is you want to use the words on the question paper to help you to keep pace. So basically, the test, each section will be divided. You'll have a bit of time. So the questions are all in order. So if you miss a question, you shouldn't spend time thinking or stressing. You should be moving straight on into the next question. And obviously, there are a lot of ways to improve your listening test scores. And one of those is to know what kind of questions you will get and knowing what is the best way to tackle these questions. And that's basically what we want to move into now. But before we do, there are some other things that you can do to improve your listening. One of them is things like TED Talks, listening to music, watching drama shows. All of that will help you to improve your IELTS listening score. And remember that it is about practice. So the more you practice, the better you will become. The test is marked. Basically, you've got 40 questions, and those 40 questions are then converted to a band score. And there are a lot of calculators available on the net, and so even within these 2 sessions, you should be able to have a bit of a gauge at what your listening score could be. So we'll have a look at that a little bit later. One of the things that really is important is spelling. Even though nowadays we have spell checks, and really we would think that spelling is not such an important thing anymore in our modern life, but for the IELTS test it still is very vital. So it is important that you do use the correct spelling. It doesn't matter if it is American spelling, British spelling, but spelling is important for the listening. So basically, when you finish your listening, you transfer your answers from the from the task sheet to the answer sheet. And what I would like you to do now is to take a piece of paper. So I hope you all have some paper and a pencil lying around somewhere. And if you could, take a piece of paper, and I'd like you to write down the numbers 1 to 40. What we're going to do is we're going to look at 40 questions. Today, for these questions and write down these answers, you'll be able to gauge what your score is approximately. So I'll be explaining some of the tips and tricks, but I'll also be giving you a question and practice test. So please take a piece of paper and write down in a similar fashion to the paper that is on the PowerPoint. Write down questions, write down the numbers 1 through to 40. And as you can see, one of the reasons why you can only write up to 3 words for each answer is because there really isn't a lot of room on the IELTS test paper. Now, if you were in my class, I would hand out one of these sheets to you. Unfortunately, that's not possible. And I can see that somebody's already said done. So I'm hoping, Arjan, you're speaking on behalf of everyone there. That everybody's got this piece of paper and they're ready to do a little bit of practice. So let's have a look at some of the different task types and hopefully get some tips. The first task that we want to have a look at today is pick from a list. And basically, what happens is you get a list of questions and you have to pick a few answers from there. And basically, from this type of question, what you really want to be doing is you want to be reading the question carefully. And this is what I mentioned before, is you'll get a little bit of reading time. And you want to note down how many options you must pick. Another thing that you want to do is you want to underline or highlight some of the key words in the main question. This is also going to help you to know what you're listening out for. What IELTS often does is that they give synonyms. However, if you underline some way, aware of what out, like any keywords in the options in our own words if we have some time. And what that does is that when we rephrase things in our own mind, it helps us again to be aware of what's happening and what's coming. And when we are aware of what's coming, it helps us to tune in and to be ready for the context of the listening. And then lastly, as you listen, hopefully choose the correct answers. So let's have a go. What we're going to do now is a bit of a practical exercise. Unfortunately, this one here isn't a listening exercise, it's a reading exercise, but it just demonstrates the task type. Don't worry, the next one will be a listening exercise, not a reading exercise. So basically we've got two people here talking, but before we look at what those people are talking about, let's see if we can implement some of those steps to success. So if you have a look, how many letters are we looking for? That should be one of your questions. Is it one letter? Is it two letters? You can see that this is questions 1 to 2. So if we were to go back to our answer sheet, we have to now have a look and answer both questions 1 and 2 on our answer sheet. It doesn't matter in which order you put this in. You can put it in any order. You can put whatever you believe the answer to be in. Number 1 could be A, number 2 could be B, or number 1 could be B and number 2 could be A. It doesn't matter what order it is. You can't put A and B into question 1. That would be incorrect. So the question asks, which 2 things must a girl do before she can take the road driving test? So obviously what we want to do is we want to underline some things there. Hopefully we can underline the road driving test. Again, reading through this helps us to gain a context of what is actually going to be happening in the listening. And then what we want to do is we want to read through the options. So we've got have her own car, have her own computer, pass the road rules test, book driving lessons, reach the age of 18. So once we've got that, we can then be ready for the listening. As I mentioned before, this one here is not a listening, it's a reading, but it is a demonstration of the type of test. So I can see some people are already quite confident, they have the answers. So I'll give you just a few more seconds. Lock your answers in, and what I would really suggest is that you write these answers down. So lock your answers in. You don't have to write them in the chat, but write them down on the piece of paper with your 40 questions and see whether you were correct or not. And so the answers are C and E in any order. So I think most people there had C and E, so I won't focus too much on that. Let's move on to the next question type. The next question type we're going to have a look at is form filling. So as the name suggests, form filling is all about filling in forms. Now, some of the information is already in there. We'll have a look at this a little bit later, but that is really important, that you only need to complete the information in the gap. Don't put the information in again. Let's have a look at some of the steps to success when we're faced with a form filling question. So the first thing we want to do is we want to read the instructions carefully, especially noting how many words we should write down. And this is really important, because if you write too many words, if you write the wrong number of words, the answer will be incorrect. And it's really disappointing when you got the correct answer but you weren't awarded the mark. Obviously you won't know this happened, but you could see this happening in practice tests, that you've heard the information, so your listening is good, but you haven't transferred the information correctly because you haven't paid attention to the instructions. After this, what we want to do is we want to look at the form, and we want to kind of guess, what is this form all about? What is the information that is being given to us? Is it a form from which office? Is it an application form? Is it a job application form? Is it a driving license application form? So what we want to do is we want to try and guess the context. Another thing that you can also guess, which we'll come to that in a second. The other thing is we want to really know which order the questions are in. And this is really important because we want to make sure that we're listening to the questions in the right order, so we don't miss a question. And then we want to look at some of the gaps, and here is where you can guess what kind of information is required, and whether it's a date, whether it's a name, what is it missing information. Knowing what to anticipate will help you to be able to listen more carefully. And so again, we want to underline some of the key words that we are listening for, and that will help us to concentrate on the answer that we are looking for. So here's a task. This task is going to be a listening task. So as we look at what's before us, we've got a lot of clues. So first question we want to kind of ask ourselves is how many words or numbers can we write? And very clearly written for us is write no more than 3 words and or a number. So we can write a number, or we can write up to 3 words, including numbers. So moving on into the table, what's the table about? Where is the table? Where is it from? What kind of form is this? And we can see that it's a telephone message form, and it belongs to the motor registry. So obviously we're moving on from the conversation that we just read, which was also about the motor registry. So here we've got the order of the questions. We've got them going down from top to bottom. So number 3, question number 3 is going to be the first thing that we're going to be listening for, and we're going to be listening for a name. So we're going to be listening for the caller's name. So straight away that we know that we're going to be listening for some type of name. That really helps us to narrow down exactly what we should be fine-tuning our listening skills for. The second one is date of birth. Now, a date of birth will include 3 things. It'll include the day, so we're listening for a number, we're listening for a month, and we're listening for a year. So we're listening for 3 things there. in a date of birth. And then a telephone. So obviously that is going to be a number and a type of car. So straight away here, when we see type of car, we should be trying to think of some of the different types of car. What type of car do you drive? What type of car does your uncle or your dad drive? So we're trying to think about brands of cars, makes of cars, and now as we're ready to listen, we've underlined all of the key information, and that's given us a much greater chance of being able to successfully answer and listen for the required information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play this recording for you. I want you to listen, and I want you to write down some of the answers, well actually 4 answers, and write them down on your sheet of paper, and we'll check our answers after we're done. So I hope you're ready. 3, 2, and let's go. Oops.
Good morning, motor registry.
Oh, good morning. I'd like to arrange a day to take my driving test.
Okay. Have you done the knowledge test yet?
Yes, I've passed that. I got 99%.
Right. What's your name? And I'll just check that on the computer. Oh, no. The computers aren't working right now. You'll have to give me your details and I'll call you back. What's your name?
Caroline Black. That's Caroline Black.
Okay. And your date of birth?
22nd of November 1984.
November the 22nd. Oh, that's today. Happy birthday. 1984. And can you give me a contact number so I can call you back?
I'll give you my mobile. It's 0412 129 807.
0412 129. Did you say 811?
No, 807.
Right, got it. And can you tell me what make and model of car you'll be using for the test?
Yes, it's a Ford. A Ford station wagon. It's my dad's car.
Okay, Ford station wagon. Well, when the computers are working again, I'll call you back with a date for the test.
Oh, alright.
Okay, great. So, how did you do? Have you written down your answers? Lock them in and let's check. Now, I'm getting a few answers in the chat, and well, let's start with the first one, and that was the name. The name was Caroline Black, and the spelling is very important. So if you didn't spell it correctly, that would be wrong answer. Now, let's have a look at the next one, the date. And here, what's really important is that we have the right right number of words. So basically, I've put up the different variants which would be accepted. Anything other than that would not be accepted. So you can have 22 November 1984, that would be accepted. 22nd would be accepted. 22nd of November 1984, or November 22nd 1984, or November 22 1984. All of those variants would be accepted. 22nd of November would be incorrect. So you can't have of there, because that would be 4 letters and that would then be incorrect. the next one, 129807, and I saw a lot of answers coming in which had 0412 at the beginning. If you had 0412 at the beginning, that would be incorrect. It's because that information has already been filled out for you. So in the steps to success, that was one of the things that was noted, that was said, was watch out for information which has already been put in the table. And so you're only putting, the only correct answer would be 129807. If you put the 0412 at the beginning, that would be an incorrect answer. So no problems if you made that mistake. It's better to make the mistake here on a practice test than it is on a real test where you would then be penalized for it. Ford station wagon was the name of the car. Now, I know that station wagon is not a very popular way of stating a car, but you did need to have all three words in there. So Ford station wagon. I'm just trying to think of what the Russian variant would be for a station wagon, but basically a station wagon, and I could be mistaken, it could be something like a Universal, but I'm not 100% sure if that would be the correct Russian word. It's basically, well, I won't explain it. Look it up on the, look, put it into Google and you'll see what a Ford station wagon is. Now, somebody did say if we put a comma in fourth, is it correct? Yeah, don't put any don't put any commas in your answers, especially when it's not, especially in an answer like a date. There shouldn't be any commas in a date. Whether that would be correct or whether that wouldn't be correct, it probably wouldn't make too much of a difference, but it's definitely better to avoid doing that. If you make a mistake, let me clarify that again, because people are asking the question. If there is a mistake in the spelling, it is incorrect. The answer is incorrect. So if you spelt station wrong or if you spelt wagon wrong, the whole answer would be incorrect. Let's move along to another question type. Labeling a map or a plan. So one of the question types you might come across is where you're given a map or you're given a plan, and then you have to label the parts of the map or of the plan, which obviously are left blank for the purpose of you answering. So let's have a look at what would be some of the steps necessary in order to be able to successfully achieve this task. So this is a reoccurring theme. One of the really important things about listening would be to know the context of what you're listening for. Once you know the context, it becomes quite easy to listen. And to give you an example, if you're sitting on a bus and you hear two people talking about something, you might not understand anything about what they're talking about. And that's simply because the language is the same. You can understand the language, but you can't understand the meaning of what they're talking about. And it's because you don't know the context. The conversation started quite some time ago. You don't really know what the conversation is about. It might be about something related to their work. And so you can listen to the conversation, you can understand every single word that they're saying, but you might have no idea about what it is about. And so if you can get a little bit of context or the general idea, that can help you to be far more tuned in your listening. So before you start listening and you have that reading time, having a look at the map, trying to guess what is this map of. Is it roads? Is it a park? What exactly is it? To try and get yourself tuned in into what this is all about. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to look at some of the parts of the map, and you want to see which parts of the map are missing, because the parts which are missing are obviously going to be the parts which will be included in the listening test. So you want to have a look at what's missing and in which place it's located, so you can kind of get a gist of where you're going in the map, in which direction the questions are going to be asked, because you might be listening for question number 7, well, and then you miss question number 6. So you really want to be able to listen to the questions in order. So let's have a look. One more thing that we want to do is we want to use some of the words already in the map. So, for example, in the map that we'll be looking at now, there'll be streets. So you want to have a look at what the street names are. So then when you listen to the street names, it won't be something new for you, because you've already heard, you've already read it on the plan or on the map. And then you can use you can use those words to help navigate you through the listening. And then there are some key words here across next to these prepositions of place and expressions of location, which it is also important to listen to as you navigate between the questions. So let's have a look at an example together. And so first thing first, we don't want to write more than 3 words on this map. So that's important. Pay attention to that. And so here is our map. And what we want to do is we want to quickly have a look over it. And you can see, or hopefully you can see, at the bottom of the map is where we are going to start. There's a little X and it says you are here. So that's our little indicator to help us to know where we're going to start in this listening. And actually, I have to say I've made a mistake in this one, which I haven't fixed. 7 and 8 are around the wrong way. So the first thing that you'll hear is actually number 8. Then you'll hear number 7. So number 8 is a building right next to where you are. It's right on the corner, opposite the theatre, opposite the bank, on George and Market Street. And that's the first one we'll be starting with. So that's a mistake. My apologies. I did fix that, but obviously not on this slide. So that's we're starting with question number 8 in this one, and then we'll move into question number 7, which is diagonally opposite. And then we've got number 9 on George Street and Martin Place on the corner there, alongside Pitt Street as well. So these are the kind of things that you want to be speaking to yourself as you read this. And then number 10, it's all the way on the other side. And the key word that we'll be looking for is Hunter Street. So in your listening test, you'd want to underline some of these streets, and you'd really want to make sure that you've got all of this basically trying to look for a path that the person will be walking along. So then you can follow and get the correct answers. All right, well, let's have a go and see if we can get some correct answers. Remember that the first answer will be actually question 8, not 7.
Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the library? I seem to have got rather lost.
Sure. Well, you're a little off course. It's about a 10-minute walk from here. Have you got a map?
Yes, here it is.
Now, let me see. You're here at the moment. I'll put a cross on the map to show you where you are.
Thanks.
Okay. So, you walk along George Street past the Queen Victoria building on your left. We call that the QVB.
Oh, I see.
Go past the QVB and turn right into Market Street. There's a bank on the opposite corner and a department store on the other corner.
So I turn right?
Yes, you turn right and walk past a lovely old theatre on your right. That's opposite the department store. That's called the State Theatre.
Okay, past the theatre and...
Then you need to turn left into Pitt Street. That's a pedestrian street with no cars and lots of shops. There are shops along both sides of the street.
Oh yes, I think I've been there before.
Walk along Pitt Street until you come to Martin Place. The old post office building is on your left, except that it's not the post office anymore. It's now a big hotel. The post office is gone.
Oh, that's a shame. I bet it's an expensive hotel.
Probably. I've never stayed there myself. Go across Martin Place and then just continue walking along Pitt Street and you'll come to Hunter Street. Turn right and then walk straight ahead for a couple of blocks until you come to a main road. The library is on the other side of the road, but you can't miss it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's see how you went. And I'm seeing in the comments some people are still asking, should we write down the answers? I'm hoping that you have written down, like the answer sheet, questions 1 through to 40, and you're checking to see whether it's correct or it's not correct. At the end, you'll be able to see you'll be able to see how many answers you did get correct, and from the answers that you did get correct, you'll be able to gauge your IELTS score for listening, and that could be really helpful in knowing basically if your goal is to get an IELTS 7 and you're really struggling and you end up getting a 4 from this practice activity, basically that could give you an indication that you need to raise your English level before you take the IELTS, and that would give you some direction in where to go next. So yeah, please do write down your scores and check them. So let's have a look. These are our answers. So we've got Queen Victoria Building or QVB. Both of those would be correct. And obviously questions 7 and 8 are around the wrong way, as I mentioned before. So question 8, as I highlighted it in the task, would have been Queen Victoria Building, and then the question 7 would have been department store. Number 9 was hotel, and number 9, I saw somebody said that they got tricked at number 9. because they mentioned 2 places, and obviously it had been something else, a post office, I believe, and now it is a hotel, and so that is one of the tricks that IELTS listening plays on you. Obviously, if you're aware of that trick, it can help you to avoid getting caught out. So do pay attention to that number 9. That is one of the tricks, or one of the things, that curveballs that IELTS throws at you. Somebody's asking if I wrote just Victoria Building, will it be incorrect? You must write down all 3 words. Queen Victoria Building. Somebody else is asking if I wrote Big Hotel, would that be incorrect? Big Hotel would be incorrect. It must be just hotel. Writing in capital letters. Is it okay to write in capital letters? It is. The main thing is to write clearly. And that is something which right now IELTS listening is marked in India. It's marked basically if you take the test in Kazakhstan, what will happen is they'll scan all of the listening tests and then email them across to India, or upload them to a system more accurately, and there will be people in India who will be checking these scores. Previously it was done locally in Kazakhstan, and it was mainly girls, actually. There wasn't any boys who would be checking these, and the girls would always complain about this really difficult to read writing. So yeah, it is difficult when you don't write clearly, and that can result in maybe the mark not going your way. So it is important to write as clearly as possible. QVB is a variant which is accepted. And just one more question here, which I'll answer, is shouldn't use abbreviation. No, we shouldn't use abbreviation. QVB was actually given in the listening. The guy said, this is a Queen Victoria Building, or the QVB as we like to call it. So big letters are not a mistake. If you use them, it's okay. You can use British and American spelling, and you can use capital letters. It is okay. But what's more important is to write clearly. Okay, let's have a look at one more question task. After this task, I think we will have our game, our quiz for 5,000 tenure. So the next task is sentence or summary completion. And so basically you have to complete sentences, or you have to complete a summary. And usually it's the same as all of the other questions. You've got an option to write 3 words and or a number. Now it is important to note this, and we do, I at least stress this continually, because sometimes it is less, sometimes it's 2 words and or a number. So again, the gaps can be anywhere in the sentence, and this basically helps us in a way, but we'll get to that later. So the first thing to do is, again, to check how many words we can write, and then in the sentence we want to underline some of the key words. Key words to help us, again, guess the context and also tune in into what we are going to listen for. So another thing that's really key in this is to note where the position of the gaps in the sentences are. So if they're at the end of the sentence, if they're in the middle of a sentence, and also what we can do is we can guess whether it's going to be a noun, whether it's going to be a number, a verb, an adjective, and all of this guessing will help us to listen for the correct information. So when trying to guess some of the key things that we're looking for, could be an article. If there is an article a or the, then we know it's going to be a noun which will follow. So all of these are clues which help us to be able to know what the information which is missing could be. And underline some of those key words in and around the missing word. That they will help you to know what to listen in for, and again, tune in. So let's have a look. Basically what we've got on the left is lighthouse, and it's in actual fact it is the Bell Rock Lighthouse. So we've got 3 words and or a number which we can answer with, and we've got, again, you can see the first sentence, the missing word is in the middle of the sentence. In all of the rest, it's at the end of the sentence. So what we want to do basically is we want to have a look at question 11. The Bell Rock Lighthouse was built almost ago. So what are we looking for there? What's the missing information? It's a number, yeah. So that's what we're looking for. It could be a number, it could be a year, a number of years. Then if we look at number 12, the tower is made of. And what, again, Aidana, you've beat me to it. It's a material. Well done, yeah. So we're looking for a type of material that the tower could be made from. I've included a picture in there for you. Obviously, there won't be a picture in the listening, but again, the picture gives a context which should make it a little bit more easy. Now, the reef is dangerous to ships because it is, and again, if you don't know what the reef is, it's not really important. If you do know what a reef is, then you could almost guess. The word. But if you don't know, it's okay. What we have to do is we have to try and guess why it is dangerous. So again, looking for some kind of clue, whether it's a noun, whether it's an adjective, whether it's a verb. And number 14, initial construction took place during the. And what are we looking for there? We're looking for a during the period, time frame. So once we've read through those questions, once we've thought through some of those, underlined some of the key words, we've made some guesses. Some people guess the tower is metallic. Let's see, is it metallic? Is it not metallic? But at least we know what we're trying to listen for, and this is going to help us as we listen. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, and 3.
On today's program about great buildings of the world, I'm going to talk about the Bell Rock Lighthouse, perhaps one of the greatest engineering feats of the 19th century, and I'm sure you'll agree that this is a fascinating story. It's nearly 200 years since the lighthouse was first built, And when you look at where it's situated, you'll see why this was such a remarkable achievement. The Bell Rock Lighthouse, also known as Stevenson's Lighthouse, after the engineer who built it, is 11 miles off the east coast of Scotland in the North Sea. It consists of a white stone tower over 100 feet high, that's over 30 meters high, and it rises out of the sea, apparently without any support. It is a truly amazing sight. But in fact, despite what it looks like, the tower is actually built on a sandstone reef, which lies just under the waves. Because the Bell Rock is underwater for so much of the time, it has always presented a great danger to shipping, and many ships were lost over the centuries. And it has also presented a huge engineering challenge, for it's no easy business to build a lighthouse under such conditions. In the first year of construction, work could only take place in the summer months, when the tide was low. And it is a credit to Stevenson and his colleagues that this incredible structure has not required a single repair to its stonework since the day it was completed in 1811.
Okay, so hopefully you've written down your answers, and let's check what they were. So it was 200 years, and you could write it either as 200, the number, years, or you could write it out as words. So 200 years. Both of those would be correct. If you wrote 200 years ago, that would be incorrect. You can't write more than 3 words. So the only information that could be in there would be the information that you see up on the PowerPoint. The next answer would be white stone. If you wrote just stone, that would be correct. White stone would also be correct. And again, when we were looking, the question was phrased quite differently compared to what the speaker actually said. So the speaker said a white stone tower, and the question was the tower is made from. However, if you had underlined tower, you would be listening for that word, and that is what would help you to be able to then associate white stone together with it. So the reef was under the waves, or we could say it's under the water or underwater. All of those variants would be accepted. So you can include the under the waves. That's 3 words, that's correct, that's fine. Under the water would also be correct, and if you just simply wrote under waves or underwater, those variants would also be correct. And the last one, it was built in the summer months. So month would be incorrect. You must have the S, or you could say it was built in the summer. Well, that brings us almost to an end of our lesson. What we're going to do now is have a look at we're going to do our quiz. So let me just quickly prepare our quiz for us, and the winner of the quiz will receive a prize. And the prize, I believe, will be 5K. A 5,000 tenge note. You might get it not as a note. You might. I'm not exactly sure how it will be sent to you. But I hope you're all ready. How it will work basically is whoever sends through all of the correct answers together. So I'm sure you understand that the Zoom chat and how it works. So if you type in one answer and then press enter, that answer will come in as one answer. So you need to put all your answers in together, and that will be so basically you need to put in all the answers and then press enter. So it needs to, all the answers need to be in one message. So I want that to be clear. So if you put, as I'm talking, please don't write in the answers because that won't count. So we've got 5 questions, Daniel. We've got 5 questions, and they're all going to come through. I'm going to give them to you one at a time, but you need to put all of them in and then press enter, and the first person to do so will be contacted by admin and will receive a prize. All right, so let's get going. I hope you all understand. I can see people already putting in ones. Please don't put in. Don't give us the answers one at a time. It will not count if you put the answers in one at a time. You have to put all of the answers in together in one message for it to count. Okay, so let's go. The first question is a very easy question. How many parts to the IELTS test? So I can already see a lot of people are putting in the answers. Don't put in the answers now. Wait until you have all the answers together and send the answers in together. Now, here's a personal question, just so you don't Google all the answers and get the prize. Here's a true or false question. I lived in Kazakhstan for 7 years. So that's specifically referring to me. What 4 countries make up the UK? So the UK we're referring here as the United Kingdom, and which 4 countries constitute the UK? Will you have time to transfer your answers at the end of the listening test? That's a very simple yes or no question. And now, ready for the last question. Whoever puts it in first, the correct answer will receive 5,000 tenge. And the question is, what is the name of a baby kangaroo? Kangaroo, as in the picture that I showed at the very beginning. So we need all 5 questions in, and the first person to put all 5 questions in will receive the 5,000 tenge. So please don't put in. Okay. So I'm hoping that the admin are able to keep up with the huge influx of questions. The answers being put in. All right, admin, can we get a bit of support here and can we announce a winner?
So, not yet. We are trying to understand. So all of the answers should be correct, right?
That's right. All of the answers should be correct. The first person to get all of the correct answers will be the winner.
Okay. Okay, only 4 questions. Okay, Medina is the winner.
Okay, congratulations to Madina. First person to give the correct answers. So let's just go through it. How many parts to the IELTS test? The IELTS test has 4 parts. That's correct. True or false? I lived in Kazakhstan for 7 years. It is true. I worked in the British Council in Almaty. I also worked with the British Council in China and presently working with the British Council here in the UK. So the British Council exists all over the world, and I spent 7 years in Kazakhstan doing a variety of jobs. A great time, and really loved the country. What 4 countries make up the UK, England, Ireland, or Northern Ireland, as some people pointed out? Scotland and Wales. Will you have time to transfer your answers at the end of the speaking test? You will. Most definitely, you will have 10 minutes. And the name of a baby kangaroo is a joey. And kangaroos keep their joeys in their pouch. Sometimes comical. If you have a look on YouTube, you can see some joeys with their legs sticking out of the pouch because they're too big, but still squeezing in there. We actually had an orphan joey, and the orphan joey wouldn't sleep like a dog on the ground. What we did was we hung up a bag, and the joey would sleep in the bag hanging. So well done to Madina, and thank you all for attending the seminar today. I really hope you enjoyed it, and tomorrow we will continue, and hopefully we will be able to complete all of the questions and be able to give you some kind of indication as to what your IELTS listening score is. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Before we close, does anybody from the admin want to say anything?
Oh, nope. I think it's finished.
Great. Okay, so goodbye everybody.